Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. It's one of my favorite guests to have on the show. I've known Ron for quite a while. Ron Stark is the president and the board of directors for the San Diego Veterans Coalition. And if you want to know anything about the veterans in San Diego County, which is a huge audience, how many veterans do we have?
In San Diego County, we have 250,000 veterans, and take 7 times that, and that's their family members.
Yeah, exactly. So the width and the breadth of it is huge on this. And Ron, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. I know it's been a while since you've been in to share some of the unbelievable things that the coalition has been doing. First and foremost, just talk a little bit about the mission of the coalition and when it was founded.
Well, the San Diego Veterans Coalition is here to serve San Diego veteran and their families, especially when they transition out of the military and decide to make San Diego County their home. We have 4 action groups, a physical and emotional health action group for all of our members. We have approximately 150 to 200 members. And participating organizations that collaborate, coordinate, and integrate to wrap themselves as an integrated community around veterans and their families. We have a physical and emotional health action group where people who work with families, children, employers of spouses, they come together and work on and solve problems. And then we have physical, emotional, family life action group. Veterans Empowered, Successful, and Thriving are young veterans that have been out, maybe a couple of years, that have found their way and are really finding their way and integrating, and their spouses. And then they can come on and do a show, a recording with us so that others could see that and say, okay, I can get that far.
Right. And then you also have the Education, Employment, and Entrepreneurship plus Transition, E3 plus T. We talk about that quite a bit when you've been on the show before. So there's 200, how many thousand?
250,000, roughly, 230, 250, depending on whose news you're reading and when. But around 250,000 veterans, plus their siblings, families, parents, and grandparents.
Right. And of the veterans, is there any, sort of breakdown of those veterans? Some served as a career, some served for 4 years, some served for 10. Is the bulk of it career or not necessarily?
Well, we know that 70% of those leaving the military have retired from the military. The vast majority get out with less than 10 years.
Right.
And for that middle group from 12 to 20 and just under that, those are generally administrative separation, medical hold, wounded or injured and medically separated. So we really have a good idea who's who in the zoo when it comes to veterans and their families.
Right, exactly. And we know, obviously, to have this coalition in the area, which has the largest grouping of military in the country between active duty with our Marines and the Navy and the Coast Guard, smattering of Army and Air Force as well, is so critical. And I know you guys are very, very closely affiliated with a group that near and dear to my heart, the San Diego Military Advisory Council.
That's right.
Talk about that relationship with you guys.
So the San Diego Military Advisory Council, their prime objective is to really bolster the economic engine of those doing business in and around the military, and bringing jobs and careers and economic gain from that. And they come together once a month at a breakfast, and they have a huge network. The San Diego Veterans Coalition now has that 80% that get out of the military that do not have a job, and we're working with them on what we now call reintegration readiness. We've shifted our model from transition. Transition is going from ICE or water to ice and ice to water.
Right.
Transition is a point in time. Reintegration is a lifetime activity after the military. And so we work with the San Diego Military Advisory Council, and we're kind of the veteran and family unit, making sure that we support them as they reintegrate.
You know, and I know something that's really important to you and then other groups that work on this as well, whether it's your friends at STEP or at 0800. There are just so many amazing, and I'm leaving out many that I probably catch it for not mentioning their names and all that business. But, you know, talk about the importance. You folks know it very, very well in the military community, but a lot of the civilians, so to speak, don't know. Making sure the military spouse is taken care of is critical.
Well, absolutely. We hear a lot. We want to keep the talent of those veterans in this community after they leave the military. I will tell you on personal experience, if you want to keep the veteran in San Diego County, make sure that spouse has a great job, because that will be a stabilizing factor while we veterans are trying to find our way and reintegrate. Not that we're lost as Easter eggs, but the fact that, that we do have to find our way. I mean, my last major social order before the military was high school, 20 years and 23 days in the military. And it was a bit of an adjustment coming out of the military. So having that spouse there, I know dozens of veterans that stayed in San Diego because their spouse had a good job and it was a stabilizing income and a family support while they were getting their education, finding their work, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, that's so true. We're chatting with Ron Stark. He's the president of the board of directors for the San Diego Veterans Coalition. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast. We are now in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, whether it's food insecurity or whether it's Alzheimer's support, arts, financial literacy. They are there shoulder to shoulder with everybody. You know, before we talk a little bit about the STARR program that you folks have and reintegration, I like the way you mentioned that. There is a bill that is hopefully going through the Assembly in California that we've been chatting about for quite a while that has an impact on the veterans, and that is taxing on this. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, that is primarily no tax on military retirements up to a cap per month.
Right.
And we find that's very important. But again, back to our point, that's 17% of those getting in the military.
Right.
It benefits those leaving the military without that retirement. There are other ways that we think that could benefit them, primarily with, let's say we had a bill that gave reciprocity to everyone getting out of the military for their spouses to have a professional reciprocity, that it's good for a few months until they get their achievement. Well, we do, but that extends to active duty military families stationed here. What about that veteran spouse that's coming here from Virginia, from Connecticut, from anywhere in the world? What about her or him when they get here? Is there legislation there? So if we could expand that legislation, that would be a great thing.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And of course, with 230 to 250,000 vets living in San Diego County, that would be something that is huge. And we know that's one of the reasons why a lot of the vets do leave our state. If I'm not mistaken, we're the only state that does tax on their retirement. Is that correct?
That's correct. Right now, we're the last one, and you know, some races it's not good to be last in, I would say. And
this is absolutely one of them. Talk a little bit about the coalition's STARR program.
Okay, so the STARR program, we got an agreement with the VA and Onward Ops. The VA to be a community integration sponsor through VISN 22, Veteran Integrated Service Network. We use acronyms a lot here.
You do a ton. That's right.
We do. So through VISN 1, we got an agreement to be a community coordinator under their VA Veteran Sponsorship Initiative, which essentially we can contact active duty while they're on active duty, 9 months or more before they get out, and help them work on preparing to reintegrate into the community. And then on the outside, we get sponsors. So those are volunteer reintegration guides that can come alongside that veteran coming out of the military and say, these are good neighborhoods, these are great neighborhoods, these are good schools, these are great schools, here's some careers, and just find out what the veteran wants to do and then help them to find their way when they're doing that.
Yeah, talk about this Army veteran who became an EMT and now is a paramedic. That's a great story.
Well, yeah, I sponsored one veteran, and really it only takes about maybe 30 minutes a week and text messages, FaceTime, Snapchat, whatever kind of way. And really in the communication means that the veteran chooses. And so we connect via whatever. Emails are kind of, old school. It's mostly just Instagram and messaging on Facebook and that. But he was getting out of the Army and he wanted to come to California and join the Air Force National Guard, because he's interested in pararescue. And that really was. And because of that, he didn't want to pursue any of his VA benefits. He didn't want to cloud any of that for whatever reason. And those reasons, perceptions are real, whether they're warranted or not. And you don't want to change that. So anyways, he came here, went to Palomar College, got an EMT certificate, and I'm talking to him. When he gets here, we went to TJ Tacos up in Escondido and just met, just someone friendly. He then got his EMT certificate, and he says, Ron, I think I want to get a paramedic certificate. And so now he's enrolled in a paramedic school, and he may pursue the pararescue, but there are a lot of off-ramps and on-ramps on the way to just about anything you're going to, as I think you would testify to, Drew.
There's no question about it. Again, chatting with Ron Stark, president of the board of directors for the San Diego Veterans Coalition, all the wonderful things they are doing with the 230 to 250,000 veterans in our community. When we come back from break, Ron, I want to talk a little bit more about some of those great stories. You've been on the show enough to know that we always save time to what can our listeners do to support your efforts? Can they volunteer? Can they contribute capital? Can they contribute equipment or whatever the case may be? But we're going to be right back after this short message.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of the Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast. We're in our 19th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 plus years of doing great things in San Diego County. Thrilled to have a longtime friend and colleague in the studio with us, chatting about veteran stuff and more. Ron Stark, president of the board of directors for the San Diego Veterans Coalition. So Ron, you folks are involved in almost anything and everything that is veteran in that aspect of it. But talk about your collaboration. You mentioned the collaboration with SDMAC, but you're also involved with, I imagine, Armed Services Y, the USO, everybody in between. Talk about that.
Well, that's true. Just about every organization, and there are about 500 organizations and agencies in San Diego County that in their lines say they serve military veterans and families. What we find is many of them don't know the others well enough to introduce them and sub in for their outreach team. And that's what the coalition is about. I encourage people to get to know each other well enough so that they could introduce them and tell enough about them to get people interested. The kind of the saying that I've coined is we share each other's air and we carry each other's mail and water.
I think that's great. And I know one of the planks that you have on your action groups is education, employment, and entrepreneurship, plus transition or reintegration. I like that term as well. And we know that, a veteran makes a great employee, to say the least, for 65 different reasons: loyal, dedicated, mission-driven, and so forth. And listen, there's no question that there's something. But talk about the entrepreneurship aspect of what you do.
Well, serving in the military, taking orders and doing what everybody else tells you to do, and every order from the top all the way down to the person just over the veteran. And I'm not only speaking for me, occasionally there are others like me, get tired of that and want to get out and be in charge of their own life. Well, that means you as an entrepreneur, that means that everybody's in charge of your life, and you're really serving customers and clients to make sure that. And so there's this whole network that one of our, we have 4 sub groups of the E3 plus T, and one of them is entrepreneurship. And so we work with the Veteran Employment Committee, and they lead that up, and we have the Veteran East County out there, and they're in it, and any of the chambers. We're right now building a stronger relationship with the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. So really about people finding their way, the small business associations. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that could really be a great mentor in this VA sponsorship initiative for someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, to kind of give a little bit of the read of the land of what that's like to have your own business. I started an LLC, and it was a mountain of paperwork, and I ended up having to hire somebody to see me through all that because it was just daunting. And not to say too much about California, but it's especially daunting in California.
Yeah, we just were chatting about this with a group. Rodolfo Farber is the president and CEO of Creator Builds Construction. They work on contracts, and he was being very, very polite and tiptoeing the fact that California has this a bit of regulations. Well, that he was being understating that, and we all know that.
Yeah, and as well, when you contract with any local government or city, state, county, local government, there are mountains of requirements for you to demonstrate that you have the ability and capability to serve out that contract. And it is, it's, for some of the contracts are too little for big organizations to bid for. Some of them are too big for little organizations to bid for. And so we're trying to help entrepreneurs find that way.
Right. We're chatting with Ron Stark. He is the president of the board of directors for the San Diego Veterans Coalition. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed, Credit Union. So you've been doing this for how long now with the coalition?
Well, I came alongside the coalition in 2009 when it formed. The original founder, Gary Rossio, was retired from the VA hospital here. And I was alongside with the original strategic plans of this thing. And the amazing thing is it's lasted and stood the test of time. We became a 501c3 nonprofit in May of 2011, and we stood the test of time. And on a pretty shoestring budget, I will say. Anyone can go to our website, sdvetscoalition.org. You can see our 990s, and we're making enough to keep the lights on. The good part about it, Drew, is there are organizations around this county that will lend us space to have our monthly meetings.
Yeah.
They have the technology. They will show up. They provide refreshments, and it really is a coalition. Anyone tells you coalition building is easy, they had a real blow to the head.
Yeah, well, they've never done it. That's what we're going to say. So you've been doing this now. Certainly you've been interested in veterans for many, many, many years. But 2009, when the coalition started, so that's 16 years. I am hoping that the answer to this is positive, but have we got better as a region in treating our veterans well and recognizing what they have done for us, or are, maybe not as much as we could?
Well, I think we have. This legacy goes back to the Vietnam veterans that came to the VA and the services and says, this has got to change. And there's no other answer. And we've built on that reputation. I retired here in 1994 and became part of that system at Vietnam Veterans of San Diego, now Veterans Village.
Right.
And my transition was a little rocky. I mean, I was really struggling to make sure I bought a house, trying to keep my house, trying to keep food in the refrigerator. It was really kind of a tough go. Made it a life mission that's not going to stand. And there's enough people that have had that same experience and saying this far and no more. And we're going to build together. I will say this community has been very integrated from the Navy Region Southwest, the VA benefits, the VA hospital, the National Cemetery. We've come together to help them. The San Diego Veterans Coalition came alongside the VA to really prop up the VA Aspire Center in Old Town to get that past City Council conditional use permission. So we have, and the key, I think, is we got to quit yelling and screaming about it and have conversations about it. I'm very simple. You know that. I have the 3 T's. What people talk about, they think about. What they think about, they take actions on. Not what they're screamed at about. If we can sit down and have conversations, and that's what the coalition is good about, is meeting and collaborating and finding out what their interests are and how we can help them achieve their interests serving military veterans and their families.
I mean, that is the bread and butter of communication and relationships. Heaven forbid you listen and you find out what the other person across the aisle is interested in doing. And you certainly do that, Ron. I've always been very lucky to have worked with you on many different projects. And we did something with the UT and veterans at our successful Aging Expo. And you were just absolutely magnificent in bringing some folks there. So we very, very much appreciate that. And to your point, here I am. I'm not a veteran, but my dad was and fought in World War II and so forth. This guy's picture now at the World War II Museum, at the MCRD Museum, which I'm very, very proud of. But it's folks like me that have loved to work with groups like you or SDMAC, and there's a lot of us out there, and there needs to be more out there to do that. Either giving you a platform to talk about the 4 billion things that you're doing, and you have an open invitation, and you have to always come on our Spotlight show, bring in veterans, and make that same offer to you again, and the families that have benefited from the work of the coalition. So the next time you're on, let's bring in a couple families as well.
Well, we'll sure do that. I will say to your comment, and Sophia, your associate producer, I talked to her about this when we came in. At the coalition, we've dispensed with saying, what military did you serve in? We ask, how do you connect to the military, veteran, and family community? Because those connections are shared experience that are strong and bonding in this county. I would say roughly about 90% of this county has some sort of a direct familial and relational connection with military veterans and the family, and we're building relations before transactions. If I could give any advice to anyone, build strong relationships, and then the transactions will follow naturally.
There's no question about it. I want to encourage our audience, certainly if they have any questions about the Veterans Coalition, go to their website. There's a ton of information. You can see more about the STARR program. You can talk about more about the Onward Ops program as well. Ron, I know we're going to have you back on sooner than later and with some of the folks that have benefited from your work, but I can't thank you enough what you do for the 250,000 veterans here, and their 7 family members. We've got to add that. It's not just them and so forth. So thanks for the great work you're doing, and we're going to look forward to having you come back on.
Yeah, it's a privilege being here. I wake up every day and I say, Lord, how did it get to be me? And the issue is just keep coming back, keep coming back. And when people stay on the test of time and keep coming back,
amplifying the voices of
Absolutely.
social impact
For you, for the families, and everybody living in this county.
Local
Ron Stark, President and Board of Directors of the San Diego Veterans Coalition. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast in our 19th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed.
Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
And we hope you enjoy the interview. Great job as usual.
Cloudcast Media.